the President of the United States, is an absolute bag of hot air. He is inert. He is an inert element. I mean, here's Joe Biden yesterday. So Joe Biden was talking about one of the three, Ukraine, Iraq, or Afghanistan. I can't tell which. Can you? Here was Joe Biden being asked by Lester Holt about his policies in Afghanistan. And he goes through a list of countries that are apparently bouncing around in whatever is left of his feeble mind.
And there was no way we were ever going to unite Ukraine. Iraq, Afghanistan. No way that was going to happen.
Which country are we talking about? We're not Ukraine, Iraq, Afghanistan, Maldives, Kenya, Canada, Mexico, Peru. This president, he's totally on top of it. And by the way, when it comes to foreign policy, he's certainly on top of it. Yeah, we still don't know what exactly is going to happen in Ukraine. I can certainly guarantee you this. If the Department of Defense continues to focus in on top priorities like diversity, equity, and inclusion, we will lose a major war in the very near future. We already lost the Afghanistan war because Joe Biden decided to lose it. But I'm talking about like just outright lose a war. Not because the military, not because the politicians lose it, but because the military loses it, because we've decided to embed a bunch of leftist progressive activists at the top of the military. According to defense.gov, is a story from the DoD News. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are necessities in the U.S. military. This is Bishop Garrison, Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Defense for Human Capital and Diversity. By the way, why exactly do we have an office for human capital and diversity at the Defense Department? Sounds like a bad make-work position at a local junior community college, but it's the Defense Department. Garrison spoke to the Center for a New American Security today about the progress being made by the department and what still needs to happen. Some 41% of the military identify as members of minority groups. That number will grow larger, said Garrison. The military must be able to attract, train, and retain them for the services to retain competitive edges, he said. Fewer Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 qualify for military service. So, he said, we have to find out ways of getting to a broader talent pool and broader interest groups in order to bring those highly qualified, talented individuals in. He noted the percentage of minorities drops as they rise up the ranks. Their numbers tend to begin to decline in terms of service. They tend to get out. There could be a variety of reasons as to why that actually is. We need to take a very data-driven approach to get a better understanding as to what's actually happening here. What is the problem? How can we address it? And he said the answer is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion is code for left-wing views on race and politics. It's code for affirmative action. It's code for the basic idea that any statistical disparity is equivalent to discrimination. Now, the military is based on a couple of basic principles. One, merit before diversity. And two, the only goal that matters is winning. Right? Those are the basic principles of the United States military. Robert Putnam wrote many years ago in a book called Bowling Alone that one of the best examples of cohesive groups in the United States was the Army. The reason being, everybody was oriented toward a single goal, and all of your individual metrics of diversity were fine, but they were subservient to that individual goal. In that book, what Robert Putnam suggested is that diversity does not actually make groups stronger, per se. Groups are strong when they have a shared goal and a shared set of rules that they abide by. But that's not what the Army is attempting to do now. That's not what the DoD is attempting to do. According to Bishop Garrison, again, a make-work position over at the Defense Department, quote, I would hope that as many leaders and members of the total force as possible see diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts as a force multiplier. I swear, these people speak like they work for McKinsey. I just use the word synergy and be done with it. He wants them to see the program as a way to make the U.S. military more successful in achieving critical missions and in making forces more lethal. Yeah, but that's not what you're talking about. Diversity, equity, inclusion does not make that forces more lethal. You know what makes forces more lethal? Making them more lethal. He says it's not just something that has to be done because of some type of cultural ideology or culture wars going on. That's not the case at all. Again, it's not diversity for diversity's sake. No, it really, really is. It really is. You want to know why all over the world our enemies are on the move? Because they think we are a paper tiger. Tom Cotton, he says, Putin could attack Kiev at any point, and we probably wouldn't do much about it. Here's the senator from Arkansas.
My estimate, based on the late troop movements into Belarus, is that Vladimir Putin decided that he wanted to get to the capital sooner rather than later, and that will be the first wave of attack into Ukraine should Vladimir Putin choose to invade.
Meanwhile, the State Department, under Joe Biden, Wendy Sherman, one of the top officials there, she says, Vladimir Putin has to understand that if he attacks Ukraine, body bags will go back to Russia. I'm pretty sure that Putin knows that. He just doesn't think enough body bags will go back to Russia to dissuade him from doing this. Maybe one of the reasons is because every ad we bring out for the United States military is about why Hannah's two lesbian moms brought up a perfect soldier. Here's Wendy Sherman.
Not only will there be dire consequences to the economy of Russia by what we will do, not just the United States, but this extraordinary alliance that exists with all of Europe and the United States and countries around the world. Not only will that create consequences, but Vladimir Putin should understand that body bags will come back to Moscow as well, that the citizens of Russia will suffer because their economy will be completely devastated.
Okay, well, they don't seem all that scared of you, Wendy Sherman or Joe Biden, which is not a surprise. Why would they be scared of an incompetent president whose entire policy is a failure on nearly every front? How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic. I'd watch that. Make it happen, gang.